Hi everybody, my name is Slava Kurylak and I'm the founder CEO at Produvia, and I am excited for you to join us. Today we are discussing how to leverage modern technologies and simplify real estate investments. This is an industry that has been sort of surprised by the circumstances of 2020. Real estate has taken a toll, like aviation, like many industries, including healthcare. And so the new world is, how can individuals, how can companies adjust amidst COVID-19? And today we will discuss some of the best practices that I notice from our clients and other industries on how companies are adjusting amidst COVID-19, how they are leveraging the latest technologies and solving real estate problems. So a little bit of background on myself for those who are not familiar. My name is Slava. I am the founder of an artificial intelligence agency, and this is an agency that aims to provide artificial intelligence solutions to clients around the world. Anyone who is interested to solve problems will benefit from leveraging artificial intelligence technologies. A little bit of additional background for those who are unaware. This is a technology that really aims to augment a lot of the processes that companies already do. And artificial intelligence, often called AI or machine learning, is a technology that is empowering individuals and companies to use private and public data and create solutions for a better world. This is a technology that has been around for a long time. This is a technology that has a lot of potential, and it's just a matter of figuring out specific use cases of how individuals can use this technology. And this is the reason why I'm doing this live stream. I'm here to educate, I'm here to inspire, I'm here to give insight to anyone who's interested to leverage AI technologies in their real estate industry. So whether you are a broker, whether you are a real estate agent, whether you are an investor, this live stream is for you. So let's dive deeper into what is possible using AI technologies, and let's discuss how to simplify real estate investments. So let's break this down. Real estate is an industry that is actually broken up into two parts, right? On one part we have the commercial real estate, and on the other we have residential. And really the difference between is that one is focused on creating a specific setting for where people can meet and aggregate in a business context, and one is creating context where the context is a little bit more residential. So really it depends on who is joining. It depends on rather who we're talking to. If we're talking about individuals who live at home, that's usually residential. If we're talking about individuals who are going to work, that's typically commercial. So there is a difference, and it's definitely something that that individuals need to think about when they're thinking about real estate. Are we talking about residential? Are we talking about commercial? So this is a technology that can be applied to really any specific problem, whether companies have residential data or they're dealing with commercial data. And what it comes down to ultimately is figuring out what is the best way that companies can leverage AI technology. So this live stream is meant to give you insight on how you can do that. So on a very high level, right, there are many ways that AI can be used in real estate. If we're talking about the applications, they span everything from risk monitoring to property management, etc. But this live stream is also meant to give you value and give you some ideas on how you can go about it. So I'll give you a few ideas, and hopefully we can expand upon that. The goal here is to see how we can use machine learning. And one of the most common use cases of machine learning technologies or deep learning technologies in the real estate industry is finding the market value of buildings. This is a very common scenario where if you are looking to list your real estate on the marketplace, you need to know what is the value of your house. Well, knowing the value of the house means that you can better have a match for who is looking to buy. So figuring out the real estate value or the market value is super, super critical. And there are many ways to do that. One of the ways is to be able to predict demand depending on location and other features. So this is a critical way to go about it. But you can also predict location. You can predict the housing prices based on location, the age of the structure, the living space, number of rooms, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, energy efficiency, quality of life in that area. You can also consider what is the property, the commute time, and the mode of transportation. So all this data can be used to predict the housing prices. And companies like Airbnb are sitting on this real estate data, and they are in the best position to use it as we see. So it sounds like we have our guest joining us today. I'm very excited to bring on Michael Moll, who is the co-founder, CPO at Reitium. Mike and I have known each other for a long time, and I'm excited to talk to him about how companies can use modern technologies, how companies can use AI technologies to solve real estate problems. And you will see now Mike appear on your screen, and then I will give Mike a chance to introduce himself. I want to welcome Mike Moll.
Thank you so much, Slava. It's really great to be here. It's been a wild year, but I'm grateful that I'm still here and still healthy, and I can see that you are, and excited to, I'm so passionate about technology and what it can do for both society and business, and so thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time, Mike, as well. It's great to have these high-level discussions about not only where we are today, but also where we would like to go. And I think that's ultimately one of the reasons why we do what we do, is that we want to create a better world. We want to create a world where things are slightly, I would say, more streamlined in how we think, at least. And part of the reasons why we love technology is because there are no limits to technology. There are no limitations to the idea that we can implement. The only limitations we face is our creative minds. And for that reason, I want to start this live stream, Mike, with the foundation. Where is Reitium today? What is Reitium, and where is Reitium today?
Yeah, thank you so much. So Reitium is a world-class system for the end-to-end solution of managing the marketing, sale, and after-transaction services for investment products. Reitium started in 2017. The goal was to democratize real estate. I think at this time you can see what's happened with Robinhood and public stocks. Similar idea around allowing people to get into real estate through an investment vehicle. So real estate's quite expensive to own an individual unit anywhere in the world, especially places like Vancouver, really hot markets. But real estate is a great investment asset that grows over time. It beats the stock market, and it's solid. It's a physical asset versus another type of asset, the stock, things like that. What Reitium did was we were very, very early in this, right? We looked at blockchain and cryptocurrency as a mechanism for supporting our transactions and the movement of money. That adoption has not gotten into mainstream investing. And so there was a lot of resistance there. What we pivoted to do was look at offering our solution as software as a service. In the industry right now, it takes about 45 minutes to 2 hours per investor to process the paperwork, collect documents, do automations of DocuSign, collect payment, etc., and then manage the entire process. And we can do that in seconds, and we can do thousands of investors at the same time. So that is the key differentiator that's really allowing us to get traction with investment firms and the licensed dealers who sell those investments to the public as well.
That sounds like quite an improvement. It's always interesting to hear how traditional companies operate and how your approach differs. And it sounds like you have created a system that is sort of incrementally sort of faster than the competitors. This is what is considered an innovative approach. So let's discuss sort of some of the core principles that you have implemented in your technology, or what you believe in that has allowed you to 10x, 100x the onboarding speed.
Yeah, and so I think the biggest thing is real-time data visibility. I think that we talked over a year ago, and we said we really wanted to have the ability for everybody in a process to see exactly what's happening with that process at real time. So let me give you the example. When it comes to the investment industry, you might have a fund that's raising $100 million. Now they actually distribute that $100 million to 10 groups, 10 million each, to sell in different jurisdictions or to different types of investors. So now what happens is each of those 10 groups might have 10 salespeople below them. So we have 100 people collaborating on selling this investment product. Now, each of those groups is using their own Excel, paper, Google Doc, whatever, to manage their portion of the allocation, their portion of investors, their leads. And so usually there is no real-time data set to know how much have we sold. That usually takes a 3-day lag time to collate all of that data from everyone. They sit at a management meeting and we say, we're at 80 million sold. In reality, you might have already oversold. And so this happened to one of our customers where someone, a dentist in Idaho, gets ready for an investment, goes through a 1.5-month process of doing everything they need to do, signs the document, sends a $250,000 wire transfer. 3 days later, gets a note saying, sorry, the deal is full. Your refund will be ready in 2 weeks. Now, that's a great inefficiency that we solve. We allow everyone who collaborates on that deal to see exactly what has been sold, in addition to allowing for privacy. So there's real-time data sharing with privacy and authenticity rules based on who gets to see that data. So the investment fund can see all the data about all the people selling as it goes through the stream, but only once the people are committed. So if there's a lead that comes in that has not yet committed to this fund, they don't see who that lead is or that personal information. When we're selling in the same team, Slava, you and I will see all the information, but the other teams will only see that Slava and I have sold 5 million. So just like actually making it down to each individual atomic data structure and who gets to see it when and why. So that's the second thing. And so those two efficiencies create the base. The third one is the ability for the customer themselves to self-serve. So I think when you have a lot of processes, it's either paper, you're signing documents back and forth, you're sending ID cards through the mail scanned, or you're putting them into email, not as secure. With our system, again, the customer gets to self-serve, and the customer and the sales rep can collaborate on what they're doing at the same time. And that really then opens it up for wherever you are in your own time, you can do things. And so instead of the sales rep spending about 60% of their time working on the administration of getting the processing of an investment through, they can now focus on relationships, selling, education, the things that actually move their needle forward. And so those are the things that we built the system on those thoughts. And what that does is it really, once you have that, it's like you think about the digital transformation steps. Once you digitize, then you look towards automation, right? And then you can start looking towards intelligence. But a lot of companies are not yet on that. At least my own method that I've looked over for years are not yet ready to use intelligence right away if they don't have these core things at the beginning. And so it's been just very interesting watching that because of COVID, a lot of companies, digital transformation has accelerated, 5 years in 3 months, and some industries it's like 20 years in the last year. Just in terms of the C-suite executives mindset of, we need digital products, we need digital access, we need the people in our company to get those new skills, and it's a really exciting time for technology in general.
You brought up an excellent point, Michael, which is that companies who are interested to use more advanced technologies, sometimes they're not ready. Typically, the piece of advice we give to startups is to become data-driven first, then consider something more advanced, whether you're looking at blockchain, AI, quantum, or any other tech. And it's super critical to establish a data-first mindset, because it allows you to gather more data over time. It allows you to gather more accurate data over time. You start to think about how you can properly label data, how you can properly manage that data. And the data-first mindset is a key mindset to how companies can get started if they have not already gone down this path. And for other companies who have already gone down this path, then considering advanced technologies like AI is the next best solution, because if you do nothing else other than collect more data, what you have a year from now, 2 years from now, is a much more accurate solution to what it is that you're offering to the marketplace. So let's say you're creating a match between a potential real estate investor and a real estate buyer, or a real estate seller and buyer. Well, the better you can match two individuals, two parties together, the higher the probability of that transaction closing. And so if you do nothing else except for collect more profiles, collect more sort of buyers and sellers on your platform, now you're creating a much more realistic solution in your offering, in your personalization. So it's great to know that you guys have sort of gone down this path. It's great to see you guys have already using these advanced technologies, including blockchain. And Michael, you also mentioned COVID-19. COVID-19 was the black swan of 2020. It really took a lot of people by surprise. Nobody could see this sort of unexpected event. Real estate was one of the industries that took a hit, aviation, the other, healthcare, the third. And I always ask this question whenever I interview folks and experts in the industries. I always ask the question is, what do you think was the biggest impact of COVID on real estate?
Yeah, I think what I can look at is I can specifically talk about real estate investing, and the first thing that happened was deal shutdown, right? And I think that was the deal flow. People were setting up to launch multiple funds, multiple properties, the event cycle, the conference cycle, etc. So that all shut down. So there's a really, really big hit for the investment industry. Again, all of our clients are using real estate as the investment mode through private capital. And so it was very tough. It was a very tough moment, March, even through to September. But what happened once the pandemic was not, okay, everybody in the world is going to die, vaccines are possible on the horizon. We're able to adjust, even though it's quite difficult, to this new normal. And that, people actually saved a lot of money by not traveling and not actually going out. And so it wasn't as bad. And obviously different industries affected differently. So different populations having less purchasing capacity, etc. But not everyone. I mean, this was the most quiet, cheapest Christmas North America has ever had, right? And so I think then people coming into the new year, even looking at our customers and their sales trends, is that people still have this disposable income, and people started to think, okay, well, now let's just plan long term. Instead, some people went to the stock market, but other people are saying, you know what, I'll do a 5-year real estate hold and wait this out, and so that was something on that psychological side, that I'm seeing. But really what it did for the industry was they started realizing there is no more in-person cocktails, there is no more conferences. The new trade booth, the new marketplace is online. And so it took a while for this, but now we're just starting to see a lot of customers looking at, oh my God, I need to be online. My team is distributed. And then the inefficiencies have now bubbled up. And so it becomes a must-have solution and technology stack, whether it is the Reitium platform or not, right? That's all to be dependent on what people need implemented, but it's this type of solution is a must-have. And so we're just starting to see that happening. And it's interesting because I saw this as a must-have solution in 2017. When we first thought about it, we went through and did all the work. So it took so many years and obviously we iterated and pivoted to make sure we could serve the market and not just serve ourselves in terms of our tech stack. But even after that, now seeing that this technology solution can be used far and wide, and that there is actually buy-in from the top. So to give you an example, in 2018, senior management of an investment brokerage said, we have people, we have like 5 or 6 staff that do this. Completely unaware of the strain on these activities on those staff members. And so that was the tension, where the middle management and junior management saying, we need this tech, senior management saying, oh, we don't want to pay for that, it's not broke, it's not, let's not fix it. They couldn't see past what was going on at that time. Now there's this idea of, okay, if we want to triple, double our business, but we don't want to triple, double our staff and costs, then we need to start looking at these solutions, and that, there's an opportunity. So that's the shift that I saw, that is just an incredible opportunity for this industry, but I think an even bigger opportunity for all technology entrepreneurs and designers out there.
Yes, I concur with what you said about sort of this tremendous acceleration of the desire to change. We see this across many domains, whether they were directly impacted by COVID or sort of in a negative light, or vice versa, positively affected. We saw this acceleration of the rush to become digital, to create products and services that did not rely on human-to-human contact, that could be facilitated with anyone around the world, where the transactions were seamless and very efficient. And this particular shift has definitely benefited some industries. And you guys who were prepared for this particular shift, because you already had a product in the marketplace, you already had sort of the foundation established. At the same time, people's expectations of real estate market changed, right? People started to stay at home more. They started to see investments differently. So, what has been the shift for consumers who were either sort of owning or wanting to sell their houses, or wanting to invest into the real estate market?
Yeah, and I think, with the traditional real estate, I can talk more from myself as a consumer, not as a professional, but what I've seen is home became super important. Home became, 10x more valuable, right? And I can just use that loosely, not like using statistical data, but we're just talking this through as a thought experiment, became way more valuable. And so the investment in home, whether it was making your home more pleasant, more beautiful, more cross-functional, most importantly, home as the office, like I'm sitting in my living room right now. And so what happened for myself and my wife was, we thought, okay, now we need a bigger space. And if we don't need to both commute to the office so long, we can live somewhere else. And so even like I just saw a report, Toronto housing market, like all these boroughs, they first time seeing over $1 million, because the demand shifted from the downtown core to the suburbs to single detached family homes. And even in the States, so the biggest thing that you talk about data, U-Haul has the best data of where people are going, where people are moving, and it's out of the big areas, San Francisco, et cetera, and moving out. And so what it does is it's actually shifting what becomes valuable. So where the penny drops is going to be, can the original hotspots maintain their luster in this next 5 years, or is there going to be an oversupply because demand drops? And are we going to see places like Arizona and the sort of the new Silicon prairie and things like that, where people want to go for lifestyle? I think Vancouver is special because there isn't really anything built out between here and Merritt and Kelowna. But I think the States and Ontario, where there's the density, that's the biggest place where people are saying, you know what, we'll move, we'll have more space, home will be more important. And so that's a shift that was never anticipated before, right? Before it was, how do we urbanize more? How do we all make more money so we can be where the action is? If the action isn't there anymore, we can be anywhere. And so with the last thing I would say, people who are in a sort of more junior socioeconomic or newer into the working place, a lot of my friends, we're just on the cusp of sort of, starting to make it, coming out of our 20s, early 30s. But a lot are saying, well, I can also be out of country. I can be in multiple places. I could, co-work, co-live. And so that trend, obviously travel is not allowed, but that trend is really just, pushing beyond what it was in 2017, where people were talking about owning investments of multiple co-working, things like that. I think that's going to be something that comes out where people are going to say, hey, you know what, we never know when this is going to happen again. So I might as well see the world now. And so I think through co-working, rather than just an extended holiday, might allow people to find a living arrangement being more distributed. And the last thing I'll say on a more spiritual note is what COVID-19 has done for us, for humanity, and our ability to react and create these vaccines is that first tipping point of being a planetary society, where we all are able to deal with something together, conquer it, work, distribute it. And I saw the Mars rover land, a few weeks ago, and I think we're ready for interstellar, like habitation. I think that's the one thing is that, when it says work from home, well, I can work from space, you know what I mean? And it's does it matter where I am, what we're doing, and also the challenges that we face, we can overcome them using deep, advanced, rapidly brought in technology. If you want to talk about the adoption of technology, the vaccines, what they have done to remove red tape, it's amazing to watch in real time, right? And they're just using the cutting edge science. And so I that's just something that I think of in the background is this is really taking us to that next level of humanity. I don't mean that whether it's good or bad, we still have all of the, Shakespearean trials of being a human being to deal with. But in terms of just an organism, humanity, this is a great challenge that is going to set us up for being more resilient in the future for sure.
I definitely think that it is the most adaptable of species that do best, not the strongest. So from that perspective, anyone who has a strong mindset, anyone who is resilient in their thinking can overcome these challenges. And it's great to see that you have these visions of sort of how things can progress from here. I do think that we will see a land grab for Mars or other planetary spaces. It's definitely will be accelerated by guys like Elon Musk, who will take us there in the first place. And I think Reitium actually is the best platform to start putting first perhaps digital and then perhaps physical assets on Mars or other planets. And it's definitely something that I think will happen as soon as we get past this sort of Earth bubble. Speaking of sort of what's possible in the future, let's discuss some of the sort of latest trends that I'm noticing in the AI space, and then we can start to shift conversation a little bit more towards technology as well. So for those who are joining us and those who are not familiar, I will briefly give you an overview of artificial intelligence and lay down the foundation that you need to know. That way you can at least better understand. So for now, AI is a technology that has transformed many industries today. This is a technology that has been around for at least 50 years, depending on who you ask. And today's companies are using AI technologies to solve real problems. So AI, what is AI and sort of how does it relate to what we're discussing? This technology is a technology that uses probabilities to make sense of this world, right? So whenever you think about uncertainty, whenever you think about risk, whenever you think about probability, that's the best technology that can help you, right? If you are making a decision and you don't know for certain what the outcome can be, should be, this is the best time to use AI technology. So for those who are listening, AI technology is simply a technology that deals with probabilities. And when you don't have probability, then what is sort of the next best thing? Well, you have certainty, right? When you have certain rules or certain processes that you must follow. And Mike can talk more about this, but this is the foundation of classical programming, or Reitium's platform is using blockchain technologies. This is how you sort of implement certainty within a digital product. And when you don't have certainty and when you have some variability, this is the perfect time to use AI technologies. So again, the recap is that AI technology is simply a technology that's dealing with the necessity when you have uncertainty with data. The more data you accumulate, the higher the probability that your technology solution is solving a specific problem. And for the real estate, what that means is that we are usually solving problems related to investments, related to matching of different individuals or companies together. We're dealing with understanding the current marketplace. So, and risk, absolutely. And risk management, actually, I'm glad you bring that up, Mike, is that it's actually one of the best ways to use AI technology, because when we are dealing with large assets, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, I remember listening to you speak previously, and you spoke about the idea that real estate is one of the biggest assets in the world. And if we're managing these massive assets in terms of value, in terms of footprint, then we need to know how to deal with risk. And how AI can help is simply to perhaps surface what is a higher risk compared to a lower risk property, or perhaps to surface what is a red flag in a transaction compared to just a go in a process.
That's a huge point you brought up. Those two things are I think those are the biggest ways that we want to look at it, right? In terms of the value to the system, is really doing the risk of properties come through, funds come through, how do we surface those, analyze those? But then the other thing is in the transaction. There is a huge compliance. So you look at Robinhood has allowed the average person to invest, but with private companies that are not on the stock market, there's a lot of scrutiny into how much money an individual can invest, because they haven't gone through an entire S1 filing prospectus, which outlines all the risks and all the disclosures. And so this means that, if depending on how much you earn, there's a cap into how much you can invest per year in private companies. And, I don't agree fully with all of the cap rates, but I understand the system is that they want to make sure that there's not inherent risk in everyone having their savings deposited in risky investments, across the board. So the idea is, how do they assess that risk? And there's a point where you're actually coming to invest. There is an entire checklist and suitability notes and all of these cues that have to be submitted with a trade to say, this is why I think this person is at an even risk to invest in this based on these things. Now, that takes a lot of time and thinking, etc. And the scalability of that still needs a sales rep and a group and a compliance officer to review all those things. If they can come to that dashboard and see risk check, compliance check, all of those things looking like they've actually gone through and analyzed and given them an understanding where they can say, okay, we can push more paper through, because sometimes it takes days to get some trades approved, right? If there's a backlog, so for example, some companies do 100, 300, 400 investments a month. Where this wants to go is 3,000-4,000 investments a month, eventually 300,000-400,000 investments a month processed, right? And so to do that at that scale, the amount of people, amount of time, and the biggest thing that happens with the SEC, the amount of mistakes that happen, right? It's not even about someone wanting to do fraud. It's a lot of the time is mistakes, because the sheer amount of data points they need to analyze, blah, blah, blah. So this is where I see a lot of, and you nailed it, is AI being able to surface the risks so that an individual who is trained can use that. And the best place that we can look at, and my example is what PayPal did, and Palantir, Peter Thiel's company, spun out of this. But PayPal did this when they said, if we want to do a risk score of a fraudulent transaction, the computer is X percentage efficient, call it 75. The human is 60%, but the human and computer combination, it was about 95, 97%. So it was just that interesting thing of it's not machines replacing humans, it's how do we augment each other doing the things that we are really good at. The computer with its reasoning, but the human mind also has an extra layer of reasoning as well. And then obviously you could talk further about how obviously there's a moment where humans can be replaced from the process completely. But like you said, at least the human is even tagging the data, training the model, correcting the model. They still that back and forth.
It looks like we have a audience question. We have Rael from YouTube asking us, is Reitium using AI technologies in its platform?
Not yet, not yet. It's something that we've earmarked to use. As I mentioned, the first place that we'd want to use it is in this risk assessment through the compliance process, both funds applying to be in the system, but also at the point of an individual investor looking to close their trade transaction. That's where we'd want to start with. But to date, we haven't focused on that. A lot of what we did was digitizing existing investment firms and brokers, centralizing their data, real-time data flow for reporting, and then automating their trade processes. That is signing up, registering, know your customer, document automation, and then reporting and portfolios. So we're in that zone, but it's something that's coming. But like I said, we really wanted to have a strong foundation first to what our core problem was for the customers we serve, and then outline to see. So we always think about, can we use it? One of the things, just to be very fair, we don't have the right talent internally to execute fully on a machine learning group yet of features. So that's just something else in the background.
Absolutely, it's definitely something that takes time. It takes thinking. It takes effort to implement, and I'm more than happy to give you that process. Whether you are interested to do the work yourself in-house or you're interested to consider sort of the outsourced path, I'm more than happy to make that sort of process work for you. And some companies are interested to use technologies and build in-house teams. Other companies are interested to be hands-off. So it really depends on the specific individual and the client, their preference for risk, their preference for comfort. And there's so many factors that go into this, and there's usually not a one sort of solution to at least how we work with our company. And the other element I wanted to mention was that AI technology actually is a spectrum. AI technology is not like it's an on or off switch. It's not that you are using AI technology or you're not. It's not like you are, for example, using data or not. It's actually a spectrum of how much you implement and where that technology is sort of being used alongside or even as a replacement of individuals. So Mike, you mentioned this process of augmentation, and the other element that often goes hand to hand with that is automation. So I'll give a brief overview for everyone who's listening. Augmentation is where we take a person and we make them superhuman and we empower them with AI technologies, right? This is where we give them data, insights, we give them tools, software, AI technology, and we make them perform their task better, faster, more performant. And this is augmentation. Automation, on the other hand, is the process where we aim to say, well, today we do manual paperwork. Can we create a system that is a digital paperwork? Well, if we can, do we need the person in the first place? Maybe we can have a digital process in place, and this would replace the manual process. Therefore, we're automating away the existing process, and therefore we don't need the person in that loop, right? Human in the loop. And this is an sort of the difference between augmentation and automation. However, if we speak about the AI spectrum, we're often discussing 6 different levels. At least this is what we define within our company. I will also link a blog post for everyone who is joining this live stream in the comment section. Feel free to go to this link now. This is a link that shares how we think about different levels of AI automation. And it goes from level 0 being zero automation or no autonomy, then going to level 1, worker assistance, partial automation, conditional automation, high automation, and full automation. So on one side, you have basically a person doing the task. On the other side, level 5 or 6th level of automation, you have full automation. So the closest analogy that I share with anyone who's listening is the idea of fully autonomous vehicles, right? We've heard about this concept. We've heard about the idea of Tesla being self-driving vehicle. This is an example of level 5 or full automation. The world's autonomous sort of vehicle companies are in a race right now to create fully autonomous vehicles. They are looking at Tesla and they see an example for a company who has defined this vision, who is doing their best to make this into reality. And so in their case, Tesla has identified all the tasks that people do and all the things that computers can do, and they're trying to see if we can automate what we typically do and we typically take for granted, whether we hold the steering wheel, whether we are turning on the wipers. So Tesla is creating a system that does not require a person to hold the wheel. They could be reading a book, they could be on their cell phone, and Tesla does not require them to turn on the wipers because wipers are automatically turned on based on the conditions of the windshield. So this is an example of full automation. Now, not all companies are aiming to strive to full automation. A lot of companies are aiming to strive for what is considered a halfway point, which is conditional automation. And here, basically, you have a worker or an individual, and they are empowered, they're augmented by intelligence, they're given the best possible tools to make a decision. And this is a path where a lot of companies take, and this is a very worthwhile path to take because we still have people doing the tasks. So this is an example where if you want to do the task and you are empowered by the process, you feel good as a human being, this is where you can start to use AI technology to help you to get to the next level. So that brings us to sort of the next transition of our questioning, which is, let's discuss how Reitium is using some of these technologies. So we've talked about AI so far. We've briefly mentioned blockchains. I would love for you to explain to our audience and everyone who's listening, how is Reitium using blockchain technologies?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we looked to blockchain for, and I like how you broke it down, is we looked for how do we get certainty? How do we get that ability to know exactly how many shares in an investment fund have been sold to who, etc. And so we looked at using a blockchain, IBM Hyperledger Fabric. It's not connected to cryptocurrency. So we wanted to use the immutability of blockchain. We wanted to use all of the features, but we didn't want to use the payment method, particularly because, at least at the time in Canada, 2017-18, there was no way that you were going to use cryptocurrency in private transactions. In Canada, there was a lot of things with anti-money laundering, know your customer, things like that wouldn't get into right now. But we just saw that we wanted to be able to go out there and issue a digital asset. And so you would have a token representing a share. So if a company has 100 shares, you have 100 tokens. Each of these are non-fungible tokens. And so each of them are unique. You have share 1 of 100, share 2 of 100, etc. And each of those shares could be purchased using a smart contract that would check to see, is this customer allowed to buy this share, right? And because we can actually code into the share itself the rules of the share. So the way that I can say it is to give the example of biology. You have enzymes and catalysts, and a catalyst has an active site, and only the right thing that can fit there will allow for the reaction to take place. The same thing happens with this, is that depending on which country you come from, your accreditation, have you passed KYC, all of those rules gives you one token that would allow you to then go and buy that share. And this is where you get that automation. So this is how we would allow someone to sign up, go through the process, not have to talk to anyone, and do a transaction anywhere in the world, have that registered on an immutable ledger. That means that it can't be tampered with, and we can go back and audit it. But also, before that transaction even goes through, we could check at the point of transaction all of those rules embedded and then cryptographically signed as a stamp of this is a share certificate. So if we go back in history to the beginning of time, share and beginning of companies, I think 400 years ago, share certificates were a physical paper that had a seal from the king. They were backed by an issuing, governing legal system. We're using those same share certificates till today. Yes, we have digital representations of them, but those are a copy. Whereas with our blockchain, the share that you own is representing exactly the real ownership as a portion of that tied to that company. And it takes it one step further, which is what we haven't unleashed with the platform, but what the vision is the resale. So now I own this share, this digital share, where if I open the share, it contains the signed documents, it contains my ID, it contains all of those things embedded and encrypted into one object. When I want to pass that share to somebody else, to trade it, to resell it, one, that person who wants to buy it will have to go through that same check, whether they are allowed to buy it, which country they're from, how long I've held it. All of those rules are kept in that smart contract. And then when I transfer that to that other person, they take ownership of everything, all of the documents, all of the income streams, all of those things. So when for example, it comes to paying a dividend, the bank account will ping the blockchain and say, who owns shares in this property? And it'll say, here are the 100 people who own shares in this property. Here is their shareholding. Here's how long they've held it, and here's their bank account. Send the money. Once the money is sent, it'll send it back to the blockchain to say, we paid all of these people this much money because of their ownership here. So that really tight system means that it's audit proof. It means that transactions can happen without the oversight of an individual, and those transactions can be trusted to follow rules that have been set in place based on ownership, authenticity, etc. So that's just sort of a quick high level on it, but that's really what's going on in the background. And this is a mind-blowing step compared to clearing and forwarding banks and all of the there's 4 or 5 groups that touch a transaction before it happens, and all those people need to be in sync that everything's okay. And so what we did with the Reitium platform is we first digitized, so they do this all in a traditional database, but then we have the blockchain layer running in the background, right? And so again, sometimes you can have all the greatest intentions with a software, you can have all the greatest technology, but it needs the people to be ready to adopt that. And that's where we found the biggest challenge. And so we actually dumbed it down and said, no, we're digitizing, we're automating, and we're bringing real-time visibility on trade transactions. And that really what gets people in the room. We're saving you, 2 hours per investor. Over, if a deal has 300 investors, you can see how that money adds up.
Yes, Mike, let's start to conclude this live stream. I would love for you to share with us your vision for the future. Where is real estate going? Where is Reitium going? Like, what are your thoughts on that future state?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is where it's going is, at least in a subs portion, is there's going to be an interesting move to how things are owned. As the infrastructure, and that's the Reitium platform, that's across the world, as the infrastructure comes to allow us to have ownership from a distance, to have ownership that is shared, to have partial ownership, to liquidate our interest, as those opens up, I think we haven't yet seen. So the founder of Stripe had a great quote that says, we built Stripe not for the existing behemoths and incumbents. We built Stripe, which is the credit card processing engine that is really easy to integrate and powers like half of the internet and all of Shopify, for example. We're building it for the people coming next. So Shopify was something that would not have been able to easily happen without a Stripe, for example, powering all the payments. And so he says, we're looking to those people. That's the same thing I see with the Reitium platform is, who are the investment funds? What are the properties, projects that need to be invested, that could be invested? Who are the people that can become investors and become owners of real estate that have not traditionally been included or not traditionally been combined together? That is the exciting part. When this type of technology becomes more commodified, cheaper, more available, more scalable, that's what I'm really excited about, is that I want to see the innovators and the entrepreneurs use this infrastructure to do what comes next. And so that to me is really what drives me and what is exciting, because like I said, we had visions before COVID, we had visions before a lot of movements for equality, equity, etc. And so those are some of the things that, the biggest investment funds in the world, they can do whatever they want. Yeah, we might save the money, we might do certain things, but it's different. It's the new incumbents, the people who haven't even started, the kids who haven't even been born, the markets that haven't been formed, where the most exciting use of the technology will happen in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I definitely think that going after the long tail of your users, your potential users, your future sort of generation will set you apart from everyone else who's focusing on perhaps the most common use cases. If you are appealing to the consumer who has $100 to invest into a real estate property, but they don't have the means to do that with a traditional system, if they can download an app, if they can create an account, if they can upload their photo ID and make an investment on the day, I think that really will blow people's minds. And I think it's going to sort of transform how people think about the investment space. I'm super excited about your potential to expand and not just to do sort of the transactions that are done in the moment, meaning that you have a listing on your property, you have a buyer and seller, but also I'm excited about the possibility where things will go, including what you've mentioned, the resale and trading. Trading is a platform sort of, or at least the concept of trading is very promising because it will immediately bring on many investors on your platform that will be eager to spend bigger chunks of cash as opposed to sort of the day-to-day consumer who's interested to invest in a sort of crowd-funded environment. So when you have investors jump in, bigger fish jump in, and they're able to invest hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, and they're using Reitium as a trading platform, and perhaps Reitium is sort of an extension of a digital representation of a physical asset, then I think the future becomes so much brighter. Like I would love to be able to invest today in using sort of digital means and start to own or co-own pieces of property around the world. I would love to have a system that helps me to manage this property over time, that helps me to make smarter investments over time. And if you sort of, it sounds like you already are going down that path of resale, and it's great to hear that. And I really appreciate that you shared with us your vision. I know we have about 4 minutes left in our live stream. So what I will do now is I will start to conclude and give you a chance, Mike, as well, to make some final remarks. And I want to thank everyone who joined us. I want to thank Real, who has been posting lots of questions and statements on YouTube. Thanks, Real. Looking forward to seeing updates. Absolutely. This is a live interaction between myself and Mike Moll, who is the CPO co-founder at Reitium. For those who are not familiar, please check out Reitium. They have a website, reitium.com, and I posted a link in the chat for those who are interested. If you are interested to learn more about how to apply AI technologies to solve real estate problems, I will now post in the comment section a blog post that I wrote previously on what are the applications of AI in real estate. There are many ideas that I go into. I believe I mentioned something about risk, so if I haven't, I definitely should. It definitely sounds like Reitium has the foundation that you guys need to start to solve problems at a large scale. Yeah, I'm super glad to hear you guys are leveraging modern technologies. I'm excited to see where your platform evolves. As always, it's fun to chat with you, Mike, and I really appreciate your time. Feel free to use the last couple of minutes to conclude and share any links or any events that you guys have with Reitium or yourself personally that our audience would like to hear.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just, I don't know if I can share a link here, but the biggest thing I can say is the investment industry has been ripe for disruption for a long time. The COVID-19 has brought a alignment between the sellers of investments and the people who need it. I think it's also brought a more awareness into savings. I think that the biggest thing for entrepreneurship is just to understand survival. I think I've been in startups for over 8 years, so there's just that ability to be nimble, to be survive. And when COVID hit, I think it was very, very difficult, but I knew what we had to do to be able to even make it to today. And I think that is what's going to set up a lot of companies who are able to survive COVID to just run way more efficiently. In terms of just the big vision, I think that the shift in younger people wanting a more open, more connected world, wanting more people to be able to participate in what this economy with this system has to offer, and Reitium just being one of those companies that's part of this bigger wave. And I think that to me is the most exciting. There's a generational shift where the millennials are going to be the majority of the working population, and then Gen Z coming even after us. And so what is the world they are going to be living in? What is the world they're expecting? I mean, they're post-digital native. They're born with an iPad in their hand. I mean, I'm joking, but the idea is, that is where I'm looking now. I'm looking at, I know I've been humbled to learn how long things take to adopt. strategy or no strategy. They are just certain things about timing and population readiness and technology and everything. And so now my big thing is just casting this 10-year vision to where is the world going to be in 10 years and how can I personally prepare for it? How can the people, the teams that I'm involved with also prepare for that? And then how can we work backwards to get there? And I think Elon Musk and those groups have just really shown us, right, is you can take your time, you can go after big fish, and you can let the pieces fall into place that you can control. And then just there's a bit of luck, timing, and patience for the other pieces. But as I always say, we're either going across the universe or we're going back to the caves. And I don't think the human spirit is going to go back to the caves. I think we are going to go far and wide. And I think the more people who can be technically aware and the more cross-functional teams we can have, the greater potential for humanity they can be all around.
We will go far and wide. I will leave it at that. I agree with you 100%, Mike. I really appreciate your time. I want to remind everyone that this is a live stream that is meant to educate and inspire people, inspire entrepreneurs, inspire founders of companies to use advanced technology, to use AI technologies. This live stream is meant to be recurring. I encourage everyone to subscribe to Produvia, and you will see a link on how sort of our upcoming live streams go. Next week, I'm excited to interview Samir Ibrahim, who is the CEO, co-founder at Sun Culture. He is one of the founders of a company that aims to sort of leverage sort of best practices to rethink traditional farming. And they've developed some incredible technology. I'm super excited to hear how modern technologies can solve a lot of farming-related problems. So that's next week. That's next Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time. It's great to see that.
I just put a link. I just put a link in there. So this is a Vancouver Real Estate Investment Summit. If you want to come out, this is one of Reitium's clients. Triview Capital and Investment Revenue Realty. They have incredible speakers from across Canada who are, vetted issuers, and they're going to be doing a bunch of education, a bunch of information, and even issuers that you could be introduced to. So I think it's something to check out. You'll see the Reitium technology featured there. You'll get an understanding of what's happening in the Vancouver real estate investment world and an insight into what's also happening across Canada. So there's just something March 27th. If people are interested, it's free to register. It's on Zoom, and we'll see you there.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. I put a link to everyone who is interested to check that out in the comment section, in the chat section. I want to thank Mike again for his time. I know that our live stream has been slightly past an hour, so I appreciate you staying a couple of minutes beyond our time. And I, again, thank everyone who joined us, who listened, who participated. And I'm excited to continue this conversation next week with the founder of Sun Culture. I look forward to seeing you guys and hearing your additional questions next time. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Take care.